This video contains the fair use of third-party content and does not violate copyright code or any of YouTube's terms of service.
Well, this looks like a video I should watch. Jeff Bezos claps back at Biden for saying inflation is corporations' fault. So I want to first start by establishing that in economics, inflation refers to a general increase in prices and fall in the purchasing value of money. So it's a pretty basic, easy to understand concept. We're basically just talking about price increases and the fact that that devalues our hard-earned money, right? As prices go up, we don't get as much bang for our buck. So if we're basically just talking about price increases here, then obviously the cause of inflation is the people who raise prices. Now, I don't say that to shame anyone. You know, I'm not trying to imply that they're immoral, greedy, selfish, corrupt, anything like that. You know, maybe they think they have a good reason for raising prices. But I still think it's important to be real about what the actual cause of inflation is, because I often hear people blaming other things that definitely are not causes of inflation, right? Even like in hypothetical scenarios, like you know, one of the reasons some people have been opposed to implementing a universal basic income is they're worried that it's going to cause inflation, right? I've heard people talking about like, you know, if the government starts giving everyone $1,000 per month, then the landlords are going to raise everyone's rent, possibly even by as much as $1,000 per month. But if it's the landlords who are raising rent, then, I mean, it's really the landlords who are causing the prices to go up. It's not UBI's fault. So what the people are doing in this situation, if they're saying that UBI would cause inflation, is they're erroneously conflating cause and incentive. These are not the same thing, though. I mean, you could say that I'm incentivized to have consensual sex with dozens and dozens of beautiful women, but so far nothing's actually caused me to do that. The decision is not completely up to me. It kind of needs to be like a mutual thing, you know? Or another example I could use, right? You could say I have incentive to kill people who disagree with me about certain things, right? Or people who have played a part in making my life worse. But the fact that it's illegal for me to do something like that, and I'd probably get caught and go to jail, and that'd just suck even worse. I mean, that's all the incentive I need to not kill the people that I would otherwise be incentivized to kill. Suffice it to say, it should be possible to implement a universal basic income while incentivizing landlords to not raise the cost of rent. I actually am an advocate for the government paying them to stop raising the cost of rent. But whatever, let's go ahead and get on with this video.
Billionaire Jeff Bezos took shots at President Biden for his comments on inflation over the weekend. Biden tweeted amid growing concerns of the cost of gas prices and groceries, "You want to bring down inflation? Let's make sure the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share."
I'm sorry, what? You want to bring down inflation? Let's make sure the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share. I assume he's talking pay their fair share of taxes, which, yeah, I mean, let's think about that a moment. Does it make any sense that making the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share of taxes would bring down inflation? I don't see how that works. In fact, if anything, I would think that making them pay their fair share would incentivize them to continue to cause inflation unless you implement some other kind of policy that incentivizes them to not cause more inflation. And Joe Biden does not seem to be offering that here. He's not making any fucking sense, which, you know, we've gotten used to that here at The Mind of Brandon. We really don't like Joe Biden. But let's continue.
Well, in response, Jeff Bezos, billionaire owner of one of the world's wealthiest corporations, Amazon, tweeted, "The newly created disinformation board should review this tweet," or maybe they need to form a new non sequitur board instead.
Yeah.
Raising corporate taxes is fine to discuss. Taming inflation is critical to discuss. Mushing them together is just misdirection.
Yeah. Now, I got to say here, in regard to the corporate taxes, we're actually in a day and age where taxation has been rendered completely obsolete, right? There's no good reason for the government to continue taxing anyone, right? Not the rich, not the poor, not the middle class, no one, right? I mean, let's face it, we got off the gold standard damn near a century ago. They switched to fiat money, and they've been creating new money ever since. Now we're at a point where the vast majority of the money that's in circulation is digital, right? Anytime you pay with a debit card, that is a transfer of digital funds from one account into another. So when they create new money, they don't even have to print up cash or coin anymore. They can just input digits into a computer. So instead of taxing people or borrowing money, dealing with, Federal Reserve bonds, all that bullshit, right? The government can actually utilize a system where new money, new digital funds are created as needed to fund whatever the hell needs funding. Now, some people oppose this idea because they say it's going to cause inflation. As we established, though, the actual cause of inflation is the people who raise prices. And if the government was utilizing a bottomless budget of renewable digital currency, then it would be very easy for them to pay people to stop raising prices.
Here with us to discuss is author and deputy opinion editor at Newsweek, Batya Ungar-Sargon. Welcome, Batya.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so this is a great topic to discuss. This might actually, this might divide the room here. I kind of like Bezos, Elon, other billionaires saying, we've had enough of this mindless being bashed for everything.
Yeah, I think it needs to be kept in mind that, regardless of what the cause of inflation is, the president's job is to solve problems, make our life better, right? So obviously part of that would be to implement the necessary policies for, fighting inflation, right? Incentivizing people to stop raising prices, possibly even implementing policies that would physically prevent them from raising prices, which can, of course, be done through technological means.
I actually like them speaking up and saying, no, government, this is wrong. And actually to twist the knife with that absolutely correct calling BS on this misinformation board, right, that's only ever going to correct in one direction because it's, run by people who only want to fact check things that in some cases aren't even wrong, like the Hunter Biden laptop story, and never anything on the other side. I'm really interested to hear what you think about this, Batya.
Check this out. I'm going to show you how I
commercial.
This card. So to me, this really perfectly encapsulated the problem with the discussion about economic policy in America, because it showed the sort of two sides of the debate and how both of them are, I think, making the same mistake. And what I mean by that is, you have President Biden saying, we need a higher corporate tax and that's somehow going to solve inflation, right? And then on the other hand, you have, this sort of corporate overlord, Jeff Bezos, saying, no, we need to, we can discuss that, but, that has nothing to do with inflation. And, we know that he's sort of against sort of corporations paying higher taxes. And I think that the problem is that both of those positions, the sort of pro-corporate, let corporations do whatever they want position, and then the tax them at a higher rate, have the government collect those taxes and redistribute them to lower income Americans.
Well, shit, if that's the plan, right, to tax the rich and then give me some of the money, I'll take it.
Both of those are fundamentally at odds with what the working class in America actually needs, which is to be paid a living wage. What they don't need is for corporations to be hampered by, impossibly high corporate taxes that will, hamper corporations' ability to create jobs and provide jobs. But they also don't need corporations to be left to their own devices and then pay them starvation wages. Even in New York City, if you're an Amazon driver, you're making $15. Sure, that's double the national minimum wage, but that is not a living wage in New York. So I feel like this exchange.
Yeah, so my approach to the whole wage situation, rather than requiring employers to pay their employees higher wages, my attitude is that we should have a new government-funded minimum wage that stacks on top of the employer-funded wage. That way, employees get more money for the work that they do, but the employer doesn't have to pay for most of it. Right, so it's kind of a win-win situation.
Exchange perfectly encapsulated what looks like a debate about economic policy, but really is just, the elites of both sides catering to what their own elites want, which is on the left, rich liberals want to, keep getting richer and richer and then pay higher and higher taxes and pay off the working class to have those starvation wages at their jobs on the left. And then on the right, what you have is corporate freedom to do whatever you want and pay people whatever you want.
It seems like Biden is just giving lip service to Americans just to say, this is what's causing the inflation problem. It doesn't seem like he knows what's causing the inflation problem. And so he's just using these catchphrases that he knows are popular, like, well, it's make the rich pay their fair share. It's Putin's problem. It's Putin's price hike, right? So, I mean, Biden, is he just lost on this? I mean, what do you think? What should he be saying compared to what he is saying?
He's fucking
to Americans?
lost.
Well, I don't think Biden probably writes his own tweets, you know, so I feel like whoever wrote that tweet, but I totally agree with you. It's exactly like, you know, Putin's price hike, right? This is the next stage of the Putin's price hike, right? It's like blame whoever the left is mad at for inflation, right?
Yeah,
like
seriously.
that is just so totally random. Like Bezos is obviously totally correct. Like corporate taxes have nothing to do with inflation. So yeah, Kim, I think that's spot on. This just, I think, you know, the president has really struggled to find not just messaging around inflation that will be compelling to Americans, but more importantly, policy around inflation that would actually help struggling Americans.
Yeah, I'm really interested if you think that we've reached sort of a turning point in basically how much pointless, very ill-informed abuse from people like Elizabeth Warren or Biden's Twitter account or whoever behind it, you know, the kind of mindless bashing. I know there are thoughtful criticisms of corporations or some of the behavior of Amazon. There's more thoughtful criticism. And then there's less, you know, thoughtful criticism like this. And I'm interested. I wonder if the people in those, you know, roles like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, you know, they getting more vocal, a little bit more defiant. Maybe they feel like they don't have to bow anymore to, you know, I wonder if we're reaching a moment where they don't have to, you know, go with what the wokest of the woke think, or like they're getting a little bit testy about it. Do you see that happening? Do you think we're maybe reaching a turning point there?
Well, I think, you know, Elon Musk is a bit of a, you know, kind of a bit of a show pony on this front. He loves to go on Twitter and sort of, you know, bash politicians while, of course, bending the knee to China and doing whatever they ask him to. I think from Bezos, maybe, that there's a little bit of sort of pushback now. He's saying, hey, you know, maybe stop kicking me around so much. But again, I think that kicking around is such a misdirection. Like someone like Senator Warren, you know, what I want to know from people like Senator Warren is, so to what do you describe, you know, the amazing economy under President Trump, if not to lowering the corporate tax rate? You can look at countries in Scandinavia. I mean, Sweden's corporate tax rate is 20%, which is lower than ours, right? A lot of places that have a kind of democratic socialist point of view understand that like raising the corporate tax rate is not necessarily a way to, that's actually not necessarily a way to help the lower classes. And so to me, that sort of the whole conversation seems to me to be about messaging rather than policy. And it's just so disappointing.
Right. Everything costs. The major problem that I see facing the working class is that in America, everything costs too much. Obviously, it does with inflation, with literal prices of goods, food, baby formula, oil. But it's been the case for a long time, maybe before that education costs too much, childcare costs too much, medical care costs too much. Actually, ironically, a lot of the sectors that the government has been very involved in have gotten a lot less affordable for working people, and that's not really it's a technical issue. It's not that we haven't appropriated enough money from corporations to make those things affordable. There's something else going on, and until we grapple with that, we're still going to have these problems.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, you hear a lot of people saying, oh, manufacturing is not coming back. Okay. So if manufacturing is not coming back, if the jobs where we're seeing increases are in places like trucking and Amazon, right, and deliveries and all of these, service industry jobs, if we're saying that's the new American working class, then it behooves the left and the right to figure out a way to make those jobs an avenue to the American dream. That is the number one priority. If we're going to say that the majority of working class Americans are going to be employed at Walmart and Amazon, in the future, and that's the future we're looking down. We have to find a way. Both sides need to find a plan to make those jobs have a living wage so we can get back on track to the American dream.
Yeah, so if people are going to be working shitty jobs like that, I definitely support them being paid a living wage. But as we established earlier, that doesn't mean that their employer has to, bear the full burden of that. We can have a government-funded wage that stacks on top of the employer-funded wage so that the employees get more money for the work that they do, but the employer doesn't have to pay for most of it. And, this is not because, I look at, these corporate overlords as like victims of wage increases or anything like that. It's one of the ways to fight inflation, actually, because one of the things that has incentivized people to raise prices, these business people, one of the things that's incentivized them to raise prices is when they have to pay their employees more money. So if the government pays the wage increases instead of expecting the employers to do it, then they're not incentivized to raise prices. That being said, I think it's also really important that the government put funding into automating all the jobs that nobody wants to do, all the really shitty jobs that people are only willing to do if you pay them. And if people lose their jobs because they've been replaced by machines, then the government can put funding into their severance pay. And in case anyone's wondering why I think it's so important to automate all the jobs that nobody wants to do, well, specifically because nobody wants to do them, right? That's why I think it's important to automate them. If people don't want to do those jobs, then we should probably just automate them and just give people the money that they need instead of expecting them to work shitty jobs.
So I've noticed an interesting phenomenon online. Everybody keeps saying, let's go Brandon.
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 And so now it has become a sensation on media. I see it in our comment section. I see it in everybody's comment section. Let's go Brandon. I was like, what is going on with this? I was like, who is Brandon? What's happening?
I wonder if Brandon's going to run for president.
Brandon is the embodiment of the new American dream, where everything's free. That means he's an incredibly good person, far better than you are.